Welcome to Speak Out. I'm Sandy Galiff, a member of the New York State Assembly, representing parts of northern Westchester and parts of Putnam County. And today we're going to talk about organ donation and somewhat of a legislative update as to where we're going in the state of New York and what more we need to do. And I have a very special guest with me today, and her name is Dr. Amy Friedman. Who is the Chief Medical Officer and Executive Vice President of LiveOnNY New York.
Correct.
So welcome so much, Amy. And we really need to know what LiveOnNY New York is for the people that are watching.
Sure. We have the privilege of being the local organ procurement organization, or OPO. We are federally designated and not-for-profit, and our responsibility and privilege is to facilitate organ and tissue donation throughout this donor service area, which includes New York City, Long Island, and several of the of the northern counties, northern to New York City. So we have about 100 hospitals, 12 transplant centers, and serve about 14 million people. Mm-hmm. Overall, there are 4 OPOs in New York State, so 3 in the northern part of the state, and there are 58 OPOs in the country.
Let's talk about the transplant hospitals. The ones around, well, I don't know whether people go into the city or they're using a Westchester Hospital, a Putnam Hospital, a Dutchess Hospital. What are the ones that are doing most of the transplants? Is it in the city?
No, we actually have 12 programs that we work with. I can be challenged to name them, but they would be Westchester, Montefiore.
The Westchester Medical
Center is a transplant center. Montefiore is a transplant center. Mount Sinai, Columbia, Cornell, NYU, Downstate, North Shore, and Stony Brook. I think.
Is there anybody up that you recall in the Dutchess area or Rockland?
No, there's a break between Westchester, and there are 4 programs in northern New York State, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, and I was there for 7 years, and Albany. And those are all of the transplant programs in New York State.
Right. Now, you had started out as a physician doing transplants.
Right. So I'm trained as a general surgeon and a transplant surgeon, and I've spent 25 years clinically working as a transplant center surgeon. 5 years ago, I had the privilege of coming and joining LiveOnNY New York, where I oversee the clinical and patient safety of what we do. We had nearly 300 organ donors last year, and making that happen and supervising what happens and getting the follow-up is my responsibility.
I'm sure it is very complicated because we today are trying to educate people, and you do this all the time, about the need for people to sign up and participate in organ donation. And my understanding is, I think around the country, we have like 120,000 people that are waiting.
That's exactly right, 120,000, and we have 10,000 of them in New York. So we have a disproportionately large focus of people in need of transplants in New York. And unfortunately, as I think you know, we have the lowest rate of donation in the country, which we're working on so intensively. We have the fastest growing registry, state registry for people to sign up ahead of time to be donors.
Maybe we could put up, I know we have a chart that shows all of the states in our nation and where New York is, and I believe it might be printed in red. And we're at the tail end of the 50 states.
We are unfortunately the bottom, again the fastest growing, but we have had significant challenges in getting people to embrace and make the action to sign up to be a donor in advance. And it's important that they do that. We know that the vast majority of New Yorkers are very much emotionally in support of donation. We need them to make the step to sign up and be a donor, and that would be at liveonnewyork.org. and I know you're going to be putting that up on your show. And also, they need to talk to their family and tell them about what their wishes are.
Let's backtrack a little bit too. Out of being the last state in people registering, we also we did we have a graph showing the counties in New York State, and there's 60, I think it's 63 counties. New York being 5 altogether. But it shows that Putnam County is doing better than Westchester County. Actually, 37% of people in Putnam County are registered, and in Westchester County, it's 27%. So, and Westchester isn't the lowest. It has Orleans, upstate, 12%. So, but we have a lot of work to do just in our localities to try to get them up to a level that is going to help people. I mean, that's what this is all about.
That is exactly right. I hope that people will understand that by signing up to be a donor, only if they have died will that actually take place, and each person has the opportunity to save as many as 8 lives through organ donation and to benefit as many as 50 or 60 through tissue donation. When push comes to shove, most people who get into the unfortunate circumstance of needing an organ in order to survive agree to accept that organ. We need them in advance to consider giving if the unfortunate circumstance comes up.
So if a person is in a car accident and dies and they haven't signed up for organ donation, what kind of, is there a process, or is that just something that unfortunately we're not able to use any of those parts of the body that could help other people?
Well, the first thing to understand is that if a person is involved in a car accident or any unexpected event, they're taken care of to the fullest extent possible. They are taken to a hospital where the teams of the hospital don't even know anything about whether or not they've considered to be an organ donor, and they are just taken care of for their own benefit. If it looks like they have become brain dead or they are likely to die, then behind the scenes, the hospital is required by the federal government to notify the associated OPO, that would be us, and let us know that a patient who meets the level of severity of an illness that would justify our potentially being involved has been admitted to the hospital. We then will find out about what's going on with the patient from the team and would only interact with the family if the patient has died.
Right. Now, if the patient hadn't signed a registry, is there still an opportunity then to work with the family and see if they are willing?
Yes, in fact, there is a regulatory requirement that every family of a patient who has died, without indicating in advance their intent, be offered the opportunity for education about donation and the opportunity, if they are suitable, to have their loved one be a donor.
Right. But it's so much better just for an individual to prepare.
Very much so.
Much easier for everybody.
We have to realize that the family that is in the circumstance of having a potential donor because their loved one has undergone some catastrophic event, they are grieving, and it's a very difficult time for them to be asked to make important decisions. How much better for you, if you want to be a donor, to give them that advance notice that, yes, I've either signed up and now am legally already a donor, or have told them I would like to be a donor if things move in that direction. Then they don't have to make
it's actually like a living will or
That's
whatever.
correct.
It's just an extension of that.
Exactly right.
Right. Let's go back to an individual can save 8 lives. Let's kind of talk about that a little bit. What does that mean? Yeah, what are the lives? Yes.
So if we have a young person who has been healthy until whatever catastrophic event suddenly happened, then it's likely that most of their organs are suitable. So we could have a heart and 2 lungs, and each lung might go to a different patient, a liver, and in cases, there are some cases where we can actually split the liver into 2 pieces, one for a pediatric patient and one for an adult patient. We have the pancreas and we have 2 kidneys. So that's a lot of lives that can be saved.
That is really wonderful. If you know, an individual that is not alive or not able to live can do that and have their transplant help somebody else.
Yes, it's a miracle. It's transferring life, and it gives a legacy to the person whose untimely death has occurred. And we also know that the act of donation and remembering a loved one in this way can be a very soothing part of recovery for a family that has a donor as well.
Now, I'm just thinking about, we spoke about a young child. When I'm with people, such as at my senior forums and so on, people, and I try to promote organ donation for people of all ages, but some will say to me, and it could be somebody that isn't real healthy, that is middle age, and they'll say, well, I just won't do that because there's nothing of value, so to speak, in my body that might go to somebody else. I said, well, you know, I don't know whether this is the right approach, but why don't you let a doctor make that decision for you? If you say, yes, I'm willing to be a donor, let the medical community figure out if there is some value to any part of your body.
So this is exactly the right approach, and it's the one that we would like all hospitals who refer patients to us to consider as well. I will tell you that I'm the doctor behind the scenes, and I don't follow any age cutoff. We have in New York actually facilitated the donation and gift of a liver from the oldest donor in the country. This was a 93-year-old whose liver was transplanted, worked right away, and the recipient left the hospital in 6 days. So
Oh my goodness,
we
right.
don't want people to select themselves out. I will also tell you that HIV used to be a contraindication to donation. In fact, it was in the initial legislation that established the infrastructure of donation in the country. But 3 years ago, the HOPE Act it's 5 years ago now, the HOPE Act was passed to change that part of the legislation, and we now will consider using HIV-positive organs into HIV-positive recipients only as a way of expanding the very limited pool of organs that we have.
Right. When you have 10,000 people just waiting, and we know
That's
so
right.
many of them. I actually had a press conference a little while ago with a number of people from Cortland, the town of Cortland, just in the town of Cortland, that have come to my attention that are waiting. They're on kidney dialysis. They had a grandchild that was born with some issues, and having somebody in their family donate a part of a liver, a little. You talked about a liver being donated potentially in 2 parts.
Correct.
And I mean, there's just so, I know so many people. I had a friend that actually flew to Florida very quickly because they had a kidney, and then once he got down there, there was a problem. I mean, sometimes there are problems because you have some other health issues that come along. But, you know, there are just so many of our neighbors. And, you know, if they were all outside just kind of ringing a bell and telling people that they're in desperate need of some kind of a transplant in order to live, to continue to live.
That's exactly right. Transplantation has become a part of the standard of care. People know that if you develop kidney failure, you can get a kidney transplant. It can only come from another person, either from a living donor, and if you don't have the good fortune of having somebody volunteer to give you their kidney, then you are dependent on the waiting list. And you're right, we have many, many people, and disproportionately a large number of them are in our state and in our area.
So the person that might find, I actually had some friends that went to the Westchester Medical Center and had a kidney transplant there, and one giving the kidney up to her husband. And so that was in the family, and I guess they first have to figure out if there's a good match.
That's right. We initially kidney transplants only were between very, very closely related people. Then, as our ability to prevent rejection improved, we were able to extend that, and so a spouse-to-spouse transplant involves no genetic relationship, but they're able to, within the family, make such donations. Today, we can also even use altruistic donations, people who have no connection whatsoever to a recipient and just say, I would like to donate an organ. Now, that's not unusual. The first thing we do is send them to a psychiatrist to make sure that that this is a appropriate wish, and they've appropriately thought it through. But that's how good this has become.
So many people. So in New York, more and more people, I think we've had a really banner year, haven't we, with trying to sign people up and so on.
We have. And we have finally hit 32% of our potential population has signed up. We are pretty much
that's up from 26.
That's right.
In New York back in I think we used the figures 2016.
That's right. And we're really rapidly growing. We have a lot of room to move. The average around the country is at least 50% of people, and there are some parts where it's as high as 80%. And we know New Yorkers are good people, and they want to help other people, so this is their opportunity to sign up.
So let's go back to why that hasn't happened. What do we have roadblocks? What are the roadblocks so that people wouldn't get on the list? I think I did it online a number of years ago, but you can do it with the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Right.
There's some other avenues.
So online or at the DMV, you can now, through one action, sign up, and that is now legal consent for donation. And that only changed in October. So it was much more difficult, logistically challenging to sign up before. We have really improved that, and that's a big part of our rapid expansion. We also know that satisfaction with care in hospitals in New York is not as good as elsewhere in the country. We know that we have a relatively low death rate, which is a great thing. We know that people are wearing motorcycle helmets and wearing their seat belts. All of this is great for public health, but bad news if you need an organ. So we're too healthy, and we put into too many regulations to keep people safe.
That's right. So
okay,
that's a problem. That's very interesting.
No, it's a happy happy issue, of course. But so what we really need people to do is commit to donation in advance, so that if they are one of the smaller number of suitable potential donors, that we can make that happen for them.
Right. And it's so easy to do. So I think everybody needs to really think about their family, because their family members may need some donation at some point.
That's right.
And they should think about their neighbors and just society as a whole. That's a part of it. Is there a religious reason? Because I've asked the religious community, and I can't find that there is any part of that plays into this.
That's correct. All of the major religions are supportive of organ donation. There is a general lack of comfort for people in thinking about their own death in advance, but it is important that we do so if we would like to help others, if we have compassion for others. And you set up your living will, your
regular will.
Exactly, your will, a health care proxy, and organ donation. And doing so really literally saves lives. It's a question of compassion.
Right. So over a period of time, I have to tell you, the advertising has been really so much better as we go along to get people to donate organs. I was on a family trip to California, and I turned on television, and there was Roxanne Watson from Rockland County, who I have met, and she's the focus of this ad, this national ad, because she had gotten an organ donation. I think it was a heart.
That's correct.
Right? And I mean, it was wonderful. And I guess the more we can do that, and to personalize to people that are watching, it gets more people to participate.
Well, that's exactly right. If you look at her, she's a real human being,
Right.
who's now out there being a productive person. Many celebrities who, for example, Selena Gomez just had a transplant and she didn't get any benefit. She had her best friend donated a kidney to her, and she's out there singing, being provocative, and being, you know, a life force again. That is the beauty of what transplantation can do, but only with organs.
Right, right. So legislatively, I know one thing that we did fairly recently in Albany was we had an 18-year-old age for you to be able to sign up, and we lowered that to 16. And has that, I'm sure that came from your organizations too, pushing legislatively
Yes.
to do something different?
That's right. The 4 OPOs in New York State work collectively. We don't compete with each other. We work supportively and collaboratively. And there's another organization called the New York Alliance for Donation, and we all work to try and bring to legislators' attentions things that can be improved. Right now, we have 3 key focuses that we're looking, or foci that we're looking at. The first one is a silly problem, and that is that when we are transporting organs and teams around, and this is particularly a problem in the city, they can't use lights and sirens like.
So you have a vehicle that will take an organ, and is it marked? Is it marked as a ambulance, or is it marked in any way?
It may be, but we can't use lights and sirens. So
Right.
so that while we can transport blood for transfusion that way, we can't rapidly transport an organ.
So blood is transferred by sirens
If
and
necessary.
lights and everything to
If
get through.
necessary, correct.
Wow, and we can't do it for the organs.
Right, and organ,
Right.
actually, the time that we have to use it in, to get it re-perfused or resupplied with blood supply is much tighter than the usability window of blood. So that's a key effort that we would like to make legislatively. We would like to be able to transport rapidly, when appropriate, transport organs.
You know, I'm pretty sure I've seen the bill up in Albany. Why doesn't that happen? I mean, it's.
I can't.
You can't tell me why.
No, I do think that there is a lobby against it for some particular reason, but that's not something that I'm really able to answer specifically. But it is kind of a no-brainer.
Maybe the ambulances want to do that themselves.
It
Somehow, I don't know. Every piece of legislation in Albany usually has a lot of people for it,
Right.
and probably a lot of people against it.
Right.
You know, and you have to.
We
try
understand.
to
We
try to
do
match
understand that, but this is really a no-brainer. We've got to get the organs transported, especially with the traffic issues that we have. Another one is that another legislative directive that we have is trying to get more portals of entry for people into the registry. What I mean by that is we would like to give people additional opportunities to sign up to be donors rather than just through the DMV. We had the New York City identification program, and people were given the opportunity through that to sign up.
That was for people for identification. It was I just register in New York City
When they
as
didn't have other
identification.
legitimate
Okay, so they
identification.
signed up through that process.
Correct.
Right. What about going, I mean, with schools? Is there a connect for people? I know some of my friends have gone into schools to talk about it, but now that the law has changed, that more can participate at an earlier age.
Right. So
is there
in
an
high
effort that way?
school, Now 16, 17, and 18-year-olds can choose to be donors, which is great. Of course, it doesn't apply directly to elementary students, although
Right.
we want them to know and be educated early on about the beauty of donation so that they can tell their family about it. And
Well, they can go home to their parents and say,
Correct.
do you have that little red heart on your driver's license or whatever else?
that's
Yes.
exactly right. And
Right.
certainly at universities, colleges, we would love it to be a part of the educational curriculum, no question about it. Perhaps when licenses of all types are given out by the state, I have a medical license. Perhaps when I'm recertifying my license, I should be given the opportunity to
Right,
donate.
or teacher certifications or whatever.
Correct.
So it would be a time when people are doing something
Right.
new and different or renewing that might be something that we would do. Have you learned from other states about things that they have been doing? Is that where you get your ideas about what you're going to push here in New
Absolutely.
York?
We have an association of OPOs. We are all very collaborative. If we have a question, we'll immediately pick up the phone and speak with our colleagues. The main difference for us between New York and other states is this low rate of registration and the challenge of registering that we now have finally overcome in October. That's why we're really pushing the registry and hoping people will go online to register. The third legislative directive that we're focusing on is there's something called a Uniform Anatomical Gift Act, which is a template that's a national template for a law about how we handle our bodies, the disbursement of our bodies. New York has not adopted and legislated the most recent version of that act, the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act. And the difference here would be that if we speak with a family, and let's say there are 5 relatives about donation, 4 of them support and 1 does not favor it, we've had to opt out of donation and not sign that.
Because it has to be fully supported by everybody in the
That's
family?
correct. And now we would like New York to adopt this most recent version so that it's the majority that is required to give consent for donation.
Well, people listening to this program can write to their legislators.
There you go.
About these issues to let them know
That's
how
right.
they feel about it, which is really important. It's one of the most important issues. And I know the other, just as we're kind of concluding, is that there was a state recently that did allow for some tax credits for people who do donate and have to take time off from work or whatever. Might be something that we look at in our state.
Right, especially for lost wages, because there is another funding program nationally that New Yorkers can access for paying expenses such as childcare, parking, transportation. But to be a living donor, people currently have to lose wages, and that's something that might be a help to
Right.
replace.
So you've given me some challenges. We have a lot to work on in Albany.
We love working
And-
with you. You are a great friend of
Right.
ours.
Well, this is a very important issue to all of us. So, and I know just as we conclude, probably we'll put up a chart again about where people how can they donate? How can they get on the registry list?
Easy. Go to our website, LiveOnNY, LiveOnNY.org, and the link is right there, and it will take a few seconds. In fact, Governor Cuomo did it in some ads that were shown broadly through the state, and it took him a few seconds to be registered.
Right. That's great. Well, thank you so much
Thank
and
you.
for your good work. I
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Thank you, all of you, for watching. If you have any questions, don't hesitate giving me a call at 914-941-1111. Thank you for watching, and be sure you get yourself and your family on the organ donation registry list. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.